Infinifactory was released in 2015 by Zachtronics. It's a first-person puzzle game that has a surprising amount of things in common with Portal. Before we get started, I want to give my usual warning about spoilers. I firmly believe that games are best played with as little information known to you as possible to preserve surprises and fun moments. Infinifactory is fantastic, one of my favorite releases of 2015, and one of the best puzzle games I have ever played. If you have an interest in the genre and somehow missed its release, then I feel comfortable suggesting that you stop this video and play it yourself. The greatest success of Infinifactory is how accessible it is without sacrificing complexity in its later stages. It maintains that quality outside of gameplay as well. This is how the game boots up, right back to where you left off. No logo slowing down the intro, no main menu. The first time you start the game begins the same way, with you already in control of your character and ready to play. I know some people think I exaggerate when I'm talking about how I hate when games slow you down with unskippable tutorials or the elevators in Dark Souls, but a game respecting my time is important to me. If it's going to make me sit there doing nothing, it better have a good reason for it. Aside from one moment, Infinifactory keeps everything moving quickly and doesn't enforce breaks in gameplay. I very much appreciate that. The game begins with you driving down a road and being promptly abducted by aliens. This game doesn't really have a story, and it's more of a background concept to give you an excuse to solve the problems presented to you. It has a few interesting moments that I'll speak about, but I mostly appreciate how restrained the game is in its storytelling after deciding that it's not important. It's unobtrusive and allows you to simply play the game. There's a tutorial corridor here that does what's probably the best thing for teaching players the basics of any game. Severely limit their options so there's only one real, fairly simple way to proceed so they can teach themselves how to do things. There are some on-screen prompts, but you still need to perform these tasks yourself and get a feel for the fundamentals of the game. To boil it all down, everything in Infinifactory is placing or removing different kinds of blocks. Here you need to build paths to proceed and are then given your suit with a jetpack to more freely navigate 3D space. The concept of these blocks are expanded on quickly in the next rooms. You're shown that you won't be the only one creating them and that you need to manipulate them in some way in order to unlock the way forward. These are the simplest examples of the puzzles you'll be solving throughout the entire game, and you're shown smaller versions of the gold teleporters and the machines that will spawn the materials you'll be using. The first cool moment in the story is right after this. You're shown, not told, that this entire section has been a test to see if you're intelligent enough to be worth enslaving by your new alien overlords. 2 doors are here, and after you step through one, you can see that the other one would have led to your death if you failed to pass the test. You meet the aliens who have captured you, and if their oppressive babbling doesn't make your situation with them clear, the trip down into your new jail cell complete with a hamster-esque pellet dispenser definitely will. You'll find the corpses of past slaves in some of the puzzle areas. Some of these are voiced by the same person multiple times, resulting in some very minor character insight as you listen to them. You'll also learn that the aliens who have captured you are too stupid to truly understand the technology you're using, which pretty much makes zero sense, but hey, like I said, the story is mostly background noise. Even these audio logs keep it light.
Did you ever watch Star Voyager? Probably not. It ran for half a season on Fox before being unjustly cancelled.
I wonder if many players end up listening to them over and over again as they mull over their options if they get stuck in a puzzle. And eventually you will get stuck. Some will sooner than others. I hit a wall early on that made me have to sit and think for an embarrassingly long time, but we'll get to that. You select puzzles from a screen in your cell, and from the very beginning, with the first task given to you, you're shown that the game is not going to hold your hand. Even if you played something like Minecraft, placing down blocks in Infinifactory and thinking in a 3-dimensional space is probably something that most players haven't had to do much, in regards to making long overlapping conveyor belts at least. This first puzzle teaches you so much in an elegant way. You're shown that some gold teleporters will only accept certain types of blocks. They're arranged to emerge from the wall in a way that is intentionally awkward in relation to their end destinations. If you fail to realize that certain blocks have to go into certain receivers, it's a brief mistake since the area here is so small. Finally, some belts have been placed for you already to nudge you into realizing that you need to have them crisscross over each other on different vertical levels. This is something you'll be doing a hell of a lot throughout the entire game, and you're taught it in the very first puzzle. This is the beginning of how accessible the game is to all players. It's building on the very simple lessons you learned on the alien ship in a way that is easy to follow but is never patronizing. The next puzzles proceed to teach similar fundamentals, welding blocks together to make a new object to send into the gold teleporter, placing blank blocks in order to create a pause in the production chain to line things up for welding, then combining blocks vertically instead of horizontally in what I think is the first puzzle that has 2 vastly different solutions. This is another thing that makes the game so great. Apart from some early levels or those that first introduce new mechanics or new blocks, there is no clear-cut solution to each puzzle. You're given the tools to create whatever sort of factory that you like, whether you're going for something big and sprawling so you can clearly see all the pieces going from one section to another, or very tightly crammed interwoven sections that put all the pieces together as quickly as possible. I think that, in the hands of a different developer, you'd be strictly limited on how many of each block you could use, or that some would be unavailable between levels in order to enforce the intended way to solve each problem. I think the way the game does it now is vastly superior for allowing player creativity and freedom. Each new set of puzzles comes with a new background setting. In the second set, difficulty continues to increase steadily so that players aren't thrown into a vastly more complicated challenge than what came before. That didn't stop me from getting stuck here though, likely much earlier than most, when you need to build a rocket. It took me a while to figure out how to get the timings right on the 3 block dispensers, and then even more time to get the rocket moving on a conveyor belt once it was fully constructed. Once again, the game succeeds by letting players figure this out on their own, but also in letting them come back later once they've learned lessons from harder puzzles further into the game. Now, I look at this puzzle and see how simple it is to solve by using a vertical stack high enough so the next pieces push it along when it's finished, instead of messing around with push blocks and sensors. The victory screen also feeds into this, since you're shown a chart of other solutions so you can see proof that there are better ways than how you did it, or you'll be proud when you're better than the average or right on with it. Although as you near the end of the game and start to contend with those who love it enough to optimize their solutions, you'll start to drift further and further away from those results. I also have to wonder how much it's influenced by people getting their solutions from YouTube. The importance of this screen was lost on me at first, but the more I played, the more I started comparing myself to others and wanted to do better. It wasn't enough to solve the puzzles, I had to do it well, and this idea was organically implanted in me through this screen. It's like a natural difficulty slider. I'd say the point where the complexity in puzzles begins to really ramp up is on this city planet. You're set to work in these occasionally cramped apartments, and you're dealing with breaking things apart instead of just welding them together. You're also almost exclusively working on things that are actually, well, things, computers, shuttles, and furnishing entire rooms. You're not just making the abstract shapes that you were before. I also want to say, like in previous videos, that if you haven't played the game and this video has already sold you on it, then this would be a good place to stop to avoid some spoilers. There's also a spoiler for Portal if you're one of the 10 people who haven't played it yet. This is where the game's brilliant level of accessibility begins to cross over to depth and challenge in each puzzle. This is a slow increase in difficulty that's leading to one of the major similarities that the game has with Portal, a mid-game fake-out. After a series of some of the most challenging puzzles yet, you go through the latest reward ceremony and are freed by a resistance group of previous slaves that escaped. The puzzles from here on are about building things to strike back at the aliens. Several new mechanics are introduced: teleporters, lasers, and counterblocks. These round out your suite of options when it comes to solving problems, and each series of puzzles is built around using them in some way, but also needing the tricks you previously learned so you're always building on your accumulated knowledge. This is another significant bump in difficulty. I especially like the teleporters since it adds another layer of planning since you now control how the blocks arrive at your work area, as well as fusing them all back together. After completing these paths, a final series unlocks in a sort of mini version of the fake-out from before. It's here that the challenge spikes considerably. I really like it when games include this sort of thing, and I think it works in almost every way. Focusing on levels that have an extreme take on past lessons can work because only those who are really enjoying the game are ever going to get that far. If you put this sort of thing in as a secret or at the very end, you're not alienating some of your player base, and those who were already in love with the game are only going to appreciate it more. The comparison that comes to mind are the secret levels in Super Mario World that are hidden behind Starland, which is a secret area in of itself. I wish more games did this sort of thing. Infinifactory especially pulls it off well. These puzzles are genuinely difficult but still adhere to the things you've been taught. I'll only show one of them in order to not ruin any surprises. You have a lot of space to work with, and the fundamentals still hold true. You see the goal structure you're meant to make, and you start laying down the groundwork to bring the different pieces together and fuse them in different workstations or junction points around your factory. It's here that the game's name is fully realized, as you build far more complicated work routes that are vertically spaced out, like the 3 conveyor belts in the first puzzle. You're finally building big factories. The game still doesn't hold your hand, and you're given the freedom to mess up your first attempt. You'll realize partway through that you're going about something all wrong, and that fusing some pieces just aren't possible in the way that you've started. But now you have enough knowledge to change it all quickly, and the tools you have for moving blocks, deleting them, and stretching out new ones makes it all fast. There's even an undo and redo function with the Z and Y keys. When you're finally finished, the game requires you to get 10 completed products into the goal teleporter. This is both so you can't cheese a puzzle with a factory that only works for one cycle, but also so you can admire your work as finished product after finished product is accepted by the game. This is your reward after getting it right after a lot of planning and perhaps a bit of trial and error as well. Then you can go on YouTube and see how much better players than you did it all in half the time and with half the space. I will say that the game can be tiring to play for long stretches, especially if you get stuck or in the last half of the game where some puzzles can take hours to solve if you hit some major setbacks. Toward the end, it was a game that I like to play in shorter sessions, completing one puzzle and then leaving the next one for later. You can also have moments similar to RPGs. Maybe I'm alone here, but when you arrive at a town full of new people to see and quests to find, and you look at it all and sort of go, fuck that, at how much there is to do, even though it's some of the best content in the game. I felt that way about some puzzles when I first saw how complex they were, but that's also part of the learning process. Compartmentalizing it all, break it down into chunks, then bring it all together. Finally getting it all working is immensely satisfying. I highly recommend this game to anyone, not just those who like puzzle games. Thank you very much for watching. If you like this video and would like to see more, you should probably hit the subscribe button and you'll be notified when the next video comes out. If you love it, I have a Patreon page available if you'd like to donate something and help support the show for further videos. My next video should be on Dragon's Dogma or Darkest Dungeon. I don't know which ones I'm going to get first. I also want to play the Tomb Raider that came out in 2013 in preparation for Rise of the Tomb Raider, and I'm not sure if I'll do a video on that one before the next game comes out. If I do, it'll probably be a short one just so people can get caught up with my thoughts on this series before the next game. If you want to watch some more videos right now, there should be some links on the screen. Thanks again for watching.